these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's here, Friday. What do you say? Friday, April 18. So good to see you today. Welcome to the Bill Press Show, booming out to you live on Free Speech TV on the Dish Network and on Direct TV. If you got a satellite, thank you for being with us. And also, you can join us on our video stream, don't forget, at Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker TV, TAWKR TV. Lots going on today. President Obama stepping into the briefing room with us White House reporters yesterday afternoon to announce some really good news on Obamacare. President reporting that actually 8 million people, 1 million more than they projected, 8 million people have signed up for Obamacare on the state and federal health exchanges. In addition, 3 million young people have been able to stay on their parents' health insurance program thanks to Obamacare. And another 3 million have signed up for Medicaid through the expanded Medicaid under Obamacare. Yeah, that's 14 million people. In addition to that, Obamacare is costing less than projected. So when are Republicans finally going to stop talking about repealing Obamacare? It is working. Meanwhile, John Kerry announcing an agreement in Geneva between Russia and the Ukraine that should defuse the situation in the eastern Ukraine and hopefully stop the violence there. And Chelsea Clinton made the big announcement yesterday, perhaps the most famous grandchild of all time, due in the fall. And now the big question is, will Hillary Clinton become the first grandmother, maybe, to sit in the Oval Office? And we will celebrate Easter by sampling whiskey. What better way to celebrate Easter? Stay with us for the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
She's pregnant. Chelsea, she's pregnant. That's what she says. She announced it yesterday. It's the biggest news of the day.
That must be the wildest start to the show we've ever done.
The biggest news. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? Maybe you didn't know it. Now the world knows it. Yes, indeed. Chelsea told us all yesterday. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Friday. Yes, indeed. It is Friday, April 18.
Pregnant.
That's right. She's pregnant. We need an hallelujah for that. Friday, our favorite day around the Bill Press Show, indeed, and yours as well. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this Friday edition. It's Good Friday. Every Friday is a Good Friday around the Bill Press Show, and we are happy to see you this morning to bring you up to date on all the news of the day, in addition to baby Clinton Mazinski. Is that his name? Mark
Mavisky or Mavinsky?
Something like that. But who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
He's Mr. Chelsea Clinton is who he is.
Have we ever seen him since the wedding?
Not much. No.
I haven't seen him at all.
No.
Wasn't there yesterday when she made the big announcement?
Make no mistake.
I mean, he's played some role here.
He should have taken her.
But seriously, I've never seen him, maybe intentionally, meaning Chelsea doesn't want him in the picture. Or he doesn't want to be in the picture. How about it? Here we are this Friday morning, and we are so glad to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Look forward to hearing from you at 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number. So wherever you're listening on your local progressive talk radio station in this great land of ours, we are there with you, and we want you to be there with us on the show. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Peter Rockburn and Elisa Murphy leading up the team this morning. Hello, hello.
Happy Friday.
Good morning.
With Alicia Cruz there. She's standing by on the phones, and we have our team of videographers this morning, the entire team of Cyprian Bolding and Monty Kanzler.
That's right.
Yeah, because we just stepped up the video production here.
That's right.
On Free Speech TV, of course, on your on the Dish Network, and on our video stream worldwide at, that's what it is, because we're
more
worldwide. You got to needs two people to crank that.
That's right.
that video machine going around the world on our video stream at Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker TV. So let's hear the news. The Chelsea Clinton, first daughter, former First Lady, former Senator, former Secretary of State, at a women's event in Lower Manhattan yesterday. And at the end of the event, Chelsea broke the big news with her proud mother sitting right alongside of her.
Mark and I are very excited that we have our first child arriving later this year. And
she's pregnant.
She's pregnant. There it is. Mark and I are very excited. And she said that she doesn't know whether it's a boy or a girl, but she just wants to be as good a mom as her mom was to her. Oh, isn't that nice? Yeah. Which is, that adds a whole nother dimension to whether or not Hillary's going to run.
Sure.
Or not run. Will she just want to spend time with the grandkid? Will the grandkid be part of her campaign? Will we see pictures of grandbaby in the Oval Office with you know what I mean? It's just
here's the other thing, right? Like every young married couple has gone through the, when are you gonna have a baby? Are you gonna have a baby? Right. But when your parents are a former president of the United States and a possible future president of the United States, can you imagine the pressure they were putting on those kids?
Yeah. This is going to be after Baby George.
That's right. That's
Prince
right.
George, maybe.
This is American royalty.
The most photographed baby, indeed. Okay. Hey, coming up today, Susan Page will be joining us, as she does every Friday, from USA Today. We'll also have reporters in from Politico and The Hill. And this is a special Easter treat. We are going to sample the world's best whiskey.
Just like we do every Easter.
Yeah. We can't go to the Saloon this early in the morning. We're bringing the Saloon to us.
That's right.
Here we do.
Right.
Here we go. Yes. And we'll get into the good news President Obama brought to the briefing room yesterday about Obamacare. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Let's go to Portland, Oregon, Bill, for a story.
I love Portland, Oregon.
Well, you might not love this story. The Mount Tabor Reservoir, which is apparently not far from the actual downtown area of Portland.
So never been there.
A couple of teenagers were hanging out, had too much to drink, and one of them peed through the fence surrounding the reservoir into the actual reservoir. He was caught on a surveillance camera. So what do you do when that happens? You have to dump 38 million gallons of treated, ready-to-drink water into the Columbia River.
Come on.
That is the solution that Portland came up with because one drunk teenager took one pee into 38 million gallons of water.
I think 38 million gallons could absorb one pee. Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. However, that was their decision. It was ready to drink. Poof, gone. Flushed down the drain.
Stupid.
I'm sure when the cops got up to that kid, you know what they told him? You're in trouble, kid.
Yes, very funny. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
Thanks, Cyprian. Mm-hmm. Here's something that might be hard to imagine. In the 1970s, Bill O'Reilly was approached to be a male model.
What?
He was working for the TV station KMGH in Denver. He said a modeling agency saw him on TV and approached him and said, not only would you be a great model, we want to use you to be the Marlboro Man.
No way.
The famous Marlboro Man from back in the day, riding his cowboy, smoking his cigarettes. That could have been Bill O'Reilly. O'Reilly turned it down, though, so he was not the Marlboro Man.
Well, he does have a better body than a brain.
That's a very good point. My favorite story of the day, Bill, if you're in Boise, Idaho, or have any plans on going to Boise, Idaho.
Does anybody ever go to Idaho?
Well, here's a reason to go now.
Why would you go to Idaho?
Well, here's why. There's a new thing you could do there. It's called DOS Break Room.
Potatoes? Is that
DOS Break Room. You could go to DOS Break Room, and you pay them a certain amount of money, depending on what you want to do there, and they have rooms full of stuff that you can break. They want you to destroy stuff, and then they clean up the mess. You could pay like $3 per item, or you could pay like $35 for an hour of just breaking stuff.
So they have glasses?
Copiers, fax machines, printers, computer monitors, dishes, vacuums, furniture. They give you baseball bats and sledgehammers and say, go at it. And you get to break it and then walk away, and they clean up the mess.
So is this all office space?
It's very office space. Yes, exactly. You take it out to the field and beat the crap out of it. They have rooms, and you just beat it up. You get out your anger, leave your frustrations there, and walk away.
There's something sick about this.
I kind of love it. I kind of do love it.
Yeah, but I mean, what does it say about, about people who would do that? People have the need to do that?
I think society in general has
let's face it, we all feel like it sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We all have a little unchecked anger.
Yeah. Are you going to pay to do that?
Out and just break something?
I'm not sure the answer is just to get it out. Yeah, you get it out, and then what? All right, I don't want to take it too seriously because I don't think that it's going to be that. I don't think it's going to be that successful. But at any rate,
there's a printer next to you, Bill. If you need to break something.
Yeah, exactly. Just watch the printer.
Watch out. Yeah. But it's in Idaho.
That's true.
So, right. Okay. That's true. There's one in Idaho, another branch in North Korea. Yes, indeed. President Obama making a unscheduled appearance. Big surprise to all of us. Didn't know until about an hour before we got there. He was coming out into the briefing room yesterday. Came out to talk about Ukraine, but the most importantly for him, he came out to talk about the latest on Obamacare. President Obama starting off with the good news about every time we hear about the signups, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Here he is.
The number of Americans who've signed up for private insurance in the marketplaces has grown to 8 million people. 8 million people.
8 million. Remember, it was 7 million last week, and then they left the doors open for those people still in line. The last we heard was 7.5. Now it's up to 8 million people. 8 million people have signed up through the state or the federal exchanges, of which 28% are under 35, which is also very, very good news. That's exactly what insurance companies needed and expected. Yeah, it'd be great if it were higher percentage, but 28% is enough to keep those premiums down. On top of the 8 million, by the way, so the 8 million is 1 million more than they projected would sign up, and that's before they had the problems with a healthcare website and lost 2 months. So that's freaking phenomenal that they were able to do that. I mean, it really, really is. despite the problems with the launch of the website, they not only met the goal of 7 million, they surpassed it by 1 million. Got to emphasize that. That is incredible. On top of that, 3 million young people have been able to get health insurance by staying on their parents' plans until they're 26. On top of that, another 3 million people have been able to sign up for Medicaid, expanded Medicaid, under Obamacare. So that's 14 million Americans who never had health insurance before, couldn't afford it, weren't allowed in the door for various reasons, who now have health insurance today for themselves and their families. That is huge, huge, huge. And it's great news. On top of that, as the White House released yesterday, other figures, up to 129 million Americans now don't have to worry, who have a pre-existing condition, don't have to worry about not being able to buy health insurance. 71 million Americans who have private insurance under Obamacare have been able to get some preventive care treatment or procedure, like a mammogram, for example, or colonoscopy, without having to have a copay. And on top of that, 8 million seniors have saved over $10 billion on prescription drugs because this donut that used to exist in that Plan D under Medicare no longer exists. It was wiped out by Obamacare. So the benefits are extraordinary on Obamacare. And overall, as we've seen, the costs of health care are in a downward slide for the first time on record. And Obamacare is projected to save $104 billion out of the deficit, cut $104 billion out of the deficit over the next 10 years. So more people have signed up than they projected. It's costing less than they projected. As the president said yesterday, look, admit it, Obamacare is working. And all those dire predictions by the other side, right, Republicans in the Congress, that nobody's going to like this, nobody's going to sign up, it'll never work, are just, have been proven absolutely untrue. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is there are still 5.9 million Americans, 5.7 million Americans who would qualify for Medicaid, but they'll never get it, at least for now, because in their states, 24 states, the governors have said, there's 25 states, the governors have said, no, we don't want this. We don't want it. Even though it's 100% paid for, 100% paid for, would not cost the states a dime. The people in those states could get Medicaid, just sign up like that, and the federal government would pay for all of it. Their governors, because they don't like President Obama, have refused to go along with it. And that's where people are really suffering. Peter, you got the list. I mean, I know it's Texas, it's Florida, it's Alaska, it's Idaho.
Yep.
It's these Republican, dumb-ass Republican governors who just would put their personal politics ahead of what's good for the people of their state.
Yeah, and they point out that
Maine, that dumbass DuPage up there, the governor of Maine.
Yeah, they point out that there are two states, Florida and Pennsylvania, where this is sort of up in the air because
they're
because their
considering.
governors are up for re-election.
But like Katie McGinty told us yesterday from Pennsylvania, that's a BS plan that the governor's come up with. But run through the list quickly so people know.
Let's see, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Texas, Alaska, Oklahoma. You see a lot of flyover states there.
Yep.
And virtually all of the South.
All of the South.
Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Maine, you mentioned. I mean, there's...
Yeah. It's just about true today, except for, I know one exception is Ohio, and I give John Kasich credit there. With the exception of that state, and maybe there's one or two others, if you got a Republican governor, you don't have Medicaid. Or expanded Medicaid under Obamacare. You got a Republican governor, you are SOL. And there's nothing we can do about it except get rid of that Republican governor or put enough pressure on that Republican governor that he comes to his or her senses. So Let's talk about this good news of Obamacare. And here's my question is, when are Republicans finally going to say, okay, we were wrong? Ever? I mean, now's the time to say it. They were dead wrong. There is no doubt about it. The facts are in. Obamacare is working. People like it. People are signing up, and it's working. Will Republicans ever admit they were wrong? 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full-time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're going to do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, a lawyer? I said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity. And one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him. Because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, so here's the question. You're a Republican. You're a governor, right? Doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican. And you've got a lot of people in your state who have no health insurance because they can't afford to buy their own. And they're not eligible yet for Medicare, but they're poor enough to qualify for Medicaid. Maybe it's a couple of 100,000, or maybe it's 1 million people in your state, like the state of Texas. And the federal government says, we'll cover all those people for you. We'll take care of them for you. No strings attached. And we'll do that for 3 years, 100%. And 3 years from now, we'll cover it for 95%. Why wouldn't you take that deal? What? Can you explain that to me?
No, I can't.
I mean,
well, the only reason I can say, logically, no, there is no reason. But when you look at what happened to Chris Christie and Charlie Crist, who, worked with the president to help their constituents, and how badly the Tea Party and Republican base turned on them.
But Chris Christie was reelected resoundingly
that is true.
After that in New Jersey. It wasn't that got him in trouble with the electorate.
You're right.
Kevin's got a quick comment from Chicago. Hey, Kevin, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Bill. Yeah, first off, they've been wrong on everything since Reagan, so no, they're not going to change. And then on top of that, we need to have our guys. We need to run with this. We need to embrace this. We need to make this move towards eventually national health care. But you know what? Let's frame it just like they do. Say to them, hey, what are you going to do? What's your plan? You want to take this away? What's your plan? Okay? We need to just embrace this for what it is. It's it's the start of a good thing. It's going to get better. We're going to make improvements. And there's no turning back from it. What's their answer to the 14 million people?
Yeah,
okay?
You know
Nothing.
what? Absolutely, Kevin, absolutely, man. You got the right spirit. I totally agree with you. Democrats, stop running from this. Embrace it. It's good. Brag about it, and then turn the tables on the Republicans.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis. Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, "Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about your next venture."
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org. to let us know your thoughts.
We're talking about the good news overall for Obamacare. 8 million people signing up through the exchanges, another 3 million young people on their parents' plan, another 3 million in Medicaid expansion. The bad news is that in 25, 26 states, people cannot qualify for Medicaid expansion because the Republican governors, refuse to accept the program in their states. And remember, it's worth pointing out that this is because of the Supreme Court. When Obamacare was challenged in the Supreme Court, the justices upheld most of the law, but the one part of the law that they said they felt was unconstitutional is requiring states to expand Medicaid. They gave states the option of opting out. And so there are a lot of Republican governors. And again, we were just talking about this, Peter. The only reason that they're doing so is because they do not want Obama to succeed.
Right.
I mean, it's as simple as that. Screw their residents, screw their constituents, screw what's good for their state. They don't want Obama to get any credit.
Yeah.
So they simply, because it doesn't cost them anything, they refuse to go along with it. But in the meantime, before we get back to your calls at 866-55-PRESS, I got to just endorse again what Kevin told us, our first caller there this morning. I think the Democrats right now have to take this and run with it, damn it. You know, don't let the Republicans put us on the defensive over Obamacare. This is a great program. It is working. It's going to get better and better. And embrace this, and rather than say, damn right, we've got 8 million people, 14 million people who never had a health insurance before, that they've got it now thanks to the Affordable Care Act. And by the way, you Republican, you say you want to repeal it? Does that mean you want to go back to women having to pay double for health insurance what a man paid? That's the way it used to be before Obamacare. What are you going to do about all these people with pre-existing conditions? You're going to tell them, you're going to take their health insurance away from them? And by the way, these 14 million people who signed up, you're going to take their health insurance away from them and just leave them out in the cold? Just turn it on these Republicans, right?
Absolutely.
That's the way to do it.
What's their response?
You're going to make people pay for a mammogram, make them pay for a colonoscopy, get away from that, make seniors go back and have to pay extra for those prescription drugs because they put the donut back in place? Make them answer for the consequences of repeal. Because when they say repeal, they got nothing on the table to replace it with. They want to go back to putting the private insurance companies in charge and letting them screw American consumers, charge them an arm and a leg, and then drop them as soon as they have any serious illness. It's the way it used to be before Obamacare, and that's where Republicans want to go back to. David, up in Huntington, New York. Hello, David. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, the problem that I have is, Medicaid, which is a program that I used to support, I find that I now oppose it. And the reason is, for instance, with these Republican governors, when you have a second or third tier healthcare system set up for the poor, it's easy to deny it to people. And also, it's an inferior program, and I know this from experience. I don't think we should have a Medicaid program.
What's the option?
Well, I believe in single payer. I think we should have the same health care for everyone. But
I do too, David. But listen, the political reality is the votes are not there for single payer.
I understand that, but the thing is, though, as long as you have a separate program for the poor, because let's face it, the Republicans are really good at picking on poor people. They talk about class warfare all the time when you talk about the 1%, but they have no problem talking about the poor, talking about the takers or the people that are supposedly in the cart versus the people that are pulling the cart all the time. And as long as we have these programs that are set up exclusively for the poor, this is going to happen. I mean,
David, let me just say something, right? Intellectually, you're just tying yourself in knots. I mean, forget it. Look, yeah, it's not a perfect plan, but I mean, and Medicaid may not be as good as a gold-plated insurance policy, but what the hell? It's better than nothing. It's better than having no protection, health insurance at all. It's better than waiting until you're dying and going to the emergency room, right? I mean, look. Someday we'll get to single payer. And by the way, another thing about the Affordable Care Act, it allows states to experiment with single payer if their governor wants to, and Vermont may be the first state to do so. But in the meantime, we've got Medicare, we've got Medicaid, we've got private insurance, and they may not be perfect, but the option is not to get rid of all of them. I mean, come on. Yeah, smoking too much pot up there, David. Mike is out in Comanche, I guess it is, Oklahoma, one of the states whose governor, Mary Fallin, has rejected Medicaid expansion. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Bill, I think that they're on the death panels, these Republican governors, and the Democrats need to point that out to them.
They are the death panels. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, right? The ones that Sarah Palin warned about, right? Way back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
By the way, how about Mary Fallin with this minimum wage thing in Oklahoma? People pretty upset about that?
Oh, yes. That's she's about like Sarah Palin, about on the same track.
Well, I hope you can do better next time around, Mike, is all I got to say. Thank you so much for the call. It is, God, poor people of Oklahoma. They certainly deserve a lot better than that. I mean, it's a red state. They're going to have a Republican governor, but it doesn't have to be a Mary Fallin. Frank Keating, former governor of Oklahoma, was a reasonable guy, a moderate guy, and did a good job. And then he got a woman in there, like a person in there, like Mary Fallin.
I'll be very curious to see sort of what the next steps are for the Republican Party, right? Because they've clearly been trying the same thing over and over and over again for a very long time with absolutely no results, except to just piss people off.
Right.
So they're going to have to do something different, right?
I think this is a come to Jesus moment. It's getting close to a come to Jesus moment for the Republican Party on Obamacare. Because the political reality is they have decided they're not going to run on anything other than Obama. This is it. This is the issue.
This is their Waterloo, as Jim DeMint might say.
Yeah, right. Remember, they even, when it came to another big battle on the debt ceiling, they decided, nope, we're not going to fight it this year because we want to save all of our fire for Obamacare. So that's where they're taking their stand, that Obamacare is wrong, it is too expensive, it doesn't work, nobody likes it, nobody's going to sign up for it, we have to repeal it. It's too much big government. Okay? Now, we see the reality. And again, repeat the reality is more people have signed up than they ever dreamed. They exceeded the sign-ups by 1 million. And they didn't hold a gun to people's heads to get them to sign up. People wanted health care. They wanted it for their families. They wanted this protection. They were never able to get it before. They could never afford it before. 14 million people have it today. Healthcare costs are going down. Premiums are reasonable and haven't skyrocketed the way they said they would be. It's all good news. It proves that it's working. It proves that it's getting better day by day by day. So this is a time, I think, when Democrats, again, have to pick this up and run with it and be proud of it and brag about it and talk about all the good parts of Obamacare. Because when you break it down, the name Obamacare, people may say, oh my, I hate that. But you talk about the individual planks in Obamacare, kids staying on the parents' health insurance, pre-existing conditions doesn't deny you health insurance anymore. They can't drop you just because you have a serious illness. You talk about all those individual provisions, and people love them. People want that. So Democrats, brag about that, talk about all the good parts of it, and then put the Republicans on the defensive and let them answer on what they're going to do if, in fact, they do repeal, and how dare they say, oh, you 14 million people that now have health insurance for the first time in your life, we're going to take it away from you and give you back nothing. I got to tell you, that is not, if Democrats play it right, they can turn this Obamacare around and use it as a weapon, as a basically a battering ram to beat Republicans on in this midterm elections. When we come back, Susan Page standing by, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today, with her take on the news of the day.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, lots of news on a Friday morning here. Good Friday, April 18. And no better person to do a quick little hop and a skip through the news of the day than Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today. Doesn't even take Good Friday off. Hey, Susan, good morning.
Bill Press, you told me that spring was here, and then we got more cold weather.
I know. I can't keep up with it. You know,
We're sort of calling it sprinter around here.
Peter and I are back into wearing sweaters and jackets, you know, and over the weekend we were in shorts and T-shirts.
It's very sad. I'm ready for spring.
It is. So, Susan, I checked your website this morning. I was surprised that the banner headline did not say, "She's pregnant."
Oh, my God. The biggest political news in the history of time.
Yes, yeah.
I think changes everything, Bill.
It does. It does. Since Prince George, no baby has gotten this much attention, right? Yeah.
Well, I can't remember. I can't think of a parallel for someone who got more public pressure to get pregnant than Chelsea Clinton.
Yeah, right. Well, this is all part of This is all part of the campaign, don't you think? For 2016, it was all carefully orchestrated.
Well, I'm hoping not, because it would be kind of sad.
It would be. But while Chelsea had that good news to report yesterday, President Obama came out in the briefing room with us yesterday, Susan, with some good news on Obamacare. Every time they talk about it, the numbers look better, huh?
Well, you know, I think Democrats are thinking now, perhaps finally something has happened that they've long wanted, which is a corner has been turned. 8 million people signed up through the exchanges. That's a good number. 28% in the state-based exchanges are under 35.
Yeah.
That's not a great number, but it's probably okay.
Yeah, New York Times reports this morning that that's what insurance companies say they expected, right?
Yeah, right.
So 40 would be better, but 28% is pretty good.
And 8 million, you know, that's a number that says this is going to be very difficult. I think probably now impossible to repeal, and maybe that changes to some degree the approach that Republicans take on it.
Right, and you know, I think the bigger question is whether it will change the take that Democrats take on it. Was stop like running from it and embrace it and say, okay, look, this is doing some good stuff here, right? And then turning the table on Republicans and saying, you mean you're going to take health care away from all these people, right?
Now the question is there, if in fact a corner's been turned, is there time by November to convince people of that?
That's right.
So that if maybe it doesn't become a big plus for Democrats in November, but maybe it stops being such a problem.
Right, and maybe it's not enough for Republicans to do what they think they have to do. And you're right. But Susan, as we know, what is it? 8 months is a long time in politics, right?
It's a lifetime. I mean, by then Chelsea Clinton's baby will have been born.
With health insurance.
With health insurance.
Covered by Obamacare, right. And the president also had just a little glimmer of good news on the Ukraine yesterday, this deal in Geneva, which kind of surprised everybody, I think, huh?
You know, unexpected to have any results out of Geneva, but I think everybody is like, can you trust Vladimir Putin to live up to an agreement? Is this really over or on its way to being resolved. I think a heavy dose of skepticism. On the other hand, better to have a deal than not to have a deal, right? At least it holds out the possibility that something could happen diplomatically.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when they say, well, we agree now that we're going to abandon these buildings, right, turn in our weapons, and everybody will be given amnesty, I'll believe it when I see it, right? You know?
I mean, remember Assad and the chemical weapons deal, which has had a lot of problems and some unintended consequences as well. On the other hand, you don't want to be negative about a positive development. It's a positive development. It's just not clear, I think, if it's a sustainable one.
No, keep hope alive, as we say. Now, Susan, I was interested in your interview with the commissioner of the IRS on their new rules. He's not backing down. What did you find out?
Well, he's backing down a little, actually,
oh, really?
Because he told us that
this is John
Koskinen, who is the guy who ran the Y2K transition for the federal government, came out of retirement to take over the IRS when it got into so much trouble. The IRS had put out a rule that really tightened the regulations for these 501c4 groups that don't have to disclose donors but can get involved to some degree in politics. And it's gotten a huge amount of criticism from the right, and also some criticism from groups on the left that it went too far. And what he told us was that they were going to rewrite the rule, put out a new rule, start the comment period over. So they had put out a rule months ago. The public comment period ended at the end of February. They got a record number of comments, most of them negative. He said they're going to pay attention to that, rewrite the rule, make it a little looser.
Right. But basically what the IRS is saying is that they want to crack down on tax cheats, right? People who are claiming a tax exemption when in fact they're doing political work, right?
Yeah. Well, they want it, the trouble is the law that Congress passed is kind of vague. And so it's up to the IRS to define what is acceptable political activity by these groups that are supposed to be social welfare groups. They're not really supposed to be political groups, but clearly some voter education, candidate forums, things like that are allowed under the law. So they're trying to figure out exactly how to do it in a way that avoids the criticism they've gotten that they're targeting groups on the right rather than groups on the left.
How soon before Darrell Issa holds a hearing? Right?
It'll be this afternoon.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, you may be called.
One of 35 hearings on this issue, I'm sure.
Fortunately, you're nearby, so you can just run over for the hearing.
Exactly. All right. Hey, Susan, happy Easter, happy weekend.
Happy Easter, Bill.
Okay, thanks again for your time this morning.
You bet.
As always, Susan Page, great job, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today. One of the best.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say done, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Kevin Cirilli from Politico joins us at the top of the next hour, joined later by Justin Sink from The Hill. Peter.
A.J. Mass is the man who played Mr. Met, the New York Mets mascot. It's basically a guy with a giant baseball head. He wrote a book about his time as Mr. Met. He served from 1994 to 1997. He said that on Jackie Robinson Day in April of 1997, Bill Clinton came to Shea Stadium, and Mr. Met came out with the president, and he said ahead of time, Secret Service came up to him and said, quote, "Now listen to me very carefully. We have snipers all around the stadium just in case something were to happen."
Whoa.
Basically, if you get too close to the president, we're going to blow your big baseball head off.
So he said, right? Don't try anything funny.
Don't try anything funny, Mr. Met.
Wow. How do you like that before you go on stage? All right. Hour number 2 coming up on Friday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's here, Friday. What do you say? Friday, April 18. So good to see you today. Welcome to the Bill Press Show, booming out to you live on Free Speech TV on the Dish Network and on Direct TV. If you got a satellite, thank you for being with us. And also, you can join us on our video stream. Don't forget, at Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker TV, TAWKR TV. Lots going on today. President Obama stepping into the briefing room with us White House reporters yesterday afternoon to announce some really good news on Obamacare. President reporting that actually 8 million people, 1 million more than they projected, 8 million people have signed up for Obamacare on the state and federal health exchanges. In addition, 3 million young people have been able to stay on their parents' health insurance program thanks to Obamacare, and another 3 million have signed up for Medicaid through the expanded Medicaid under Obamacare. Yeah, that's 14 million people. In addition to that, Obamacare is costing less than projected. So when are Republicans finally going to stop talking about repealing Obamacare? It is working. Meanwhile, John Kerry announcing an agreement in Geneva between Russia and the Ukraine that should defuse the situation in the eastern Ukraine and hopefully stop the violence there. And Chelsea Clinton made the big announcement yesterday, perhaps the most famous grandchild of all time, due in the fall. And now the big question is, will Hillary Clinton become the first grandmother, maybe, to sit in the Oval Office? And we will celebrate Easter by sampling whiskey. What better way to celebrate Easter? Stay with us for the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
And, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Forget Baby George. We've got Baby Clinton. Absolutely. American royalty. Good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is Friday, April 18. This is the Bill Press Show. So good to see you this Friday morning. Good Friday. Every Friday is a good Friday as far as I'm concerned. And we welcome you on your local progressive talk radio station. We welcome you, all of those of you watching on Free Speech TV. We welcome you on our video stream, too, worldwide at Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker TV. Don't forget, it's a two-way street here. We'll tell you what's going on. That's our job. Your job is to tell us what you think about it all and what it means to you. So get ready. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS to sound off on the issues of the day, or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. If you were watching earlier this morning, early on MSNBC, you saw Kevin Cirilli of Politico. He didn't have anything better to do after MSNBC, so here he is in our studio now this morning. Good morning, Kevin.
Good
nice to
morning.
see you.
Happy Good Friday and happy early Easter.
We are
Thanks for having me.
we're just slightly pissed that you went to MSNBC before you came here.
Yeah, I mean, we booked you for the early slot today.
You could have come here first and then gone over there.
Very rude.
I never would want to offend my friends of the Bill Press Show.
But it's nice to be in demand. Put it that way, right? Yes, good. I'm sure your agent is happy.
Trust me, I do not have an agent.
Our team here: Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello.
Hey, good morning. Happy Friday.
With Alicia Cruz there, standing by on the phones, and Cyprian Bolding and Monty Kanzler on the video stream. As always, big news about Chelsea. Just
huge news.
Changes everything, doesn't it?
Well, it gives us something to talk about, right? No, it does, and it comes at a time.
No pressure on her, by the way, to get pregnant.
Just how imagine growing up in that environment where like every major life announcement is like a thing, a huge moment in American politics.
Hi, good morning, Mom. I just want to. Oh, did you have sex last night? What are our chances? You know that's been the conversation, man, ever since she got married, right?
Maybe not in those direct words.
Oh, Hillary.
You know what? Yeah, good point.
Kidding?
She is very to the point.
Yeah. So I'm surprised that Chelsea was able to put it off this long.
Well, seriously, I mean,
they've been married like 4 years, I think.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years, I guess. But like when you get married and you don't have kids, that's immediately everybody's conversation starts. What are you going to have kids? You're going to have kids? You're thinking about kids? What are you thinking about kids?
Yeah.
And so when you've got the former president of the United States and the possible future president of the United States, they know how to get things done.
Well, it's coming at a time when the former Secretary of State's Hillary Clinton's approval rating is at a low. I mean, really, she had nowhere to go but down. To be honest,
people love kids. People love kids. Her approval rate is going to go through the roof.
Right.
Well, I mean, and every politician, we always give them a hard time when they're reaching for babies and like.
Now she'll have.
Can't you just?
She'll have her own.
She'll have her own babies to kiss.
I know. But I want you to know, in the political world, this was not the biggest news of the day yesterday. Some people think it is the biggest news.
There was
actually,
actual news.
was in Toronto. In Toronto, where Rob Ford announced that he is running for re-election because the people of Toronto need somebody just like them. Here he is, Rob Ford.
The people of Toronto will be represented by a mayor who gets it. A guy just like them.
What does he have to lose at this point?
Seriously.
Like what I mean, did you see him? He was on Kimmel, I think, the other week. I mean, what does he have to lose?
Oh, no.
Like, so, yeah.
You're all crackheads. You're all fat. You're all just like me. You're all sloppy dressers. You're all,
I want him and Anthony Weiner to host something or to see them on a panel together.
God, yeah.
Holy cow.
It would just be, that would be dying. You should get them on this show.
I'd watch that.
I'll do a field trip to Toronto if we could interview Rob. Absolutely. So he is out there, and I want you to know he is my candidate.
Damn right.
I don't know who's running against him.
Doesn't matter.
He is my candidate. So Kevin Cirilli is here with us for the important stuff of the day. Justin Sink joining us from the Hill just a little bit later. And then in the next hour, to get us ready for Easter Sunday, we will be joined by the co-owner of Beuchert's Saloon, which is right down the street, and he's bringing in a selection of fine whiskey for us all to taste this morning.
Why did I get this slot?
Because of
Don't you have to go off
MSNBC.
to some other channel or something
Yeah,
afterwards?
Kevin, maybe you
your
come here
busy
first.
media schedule.
Let you stay.
Okay.
What if I brought whiskey? Maybe then I'd
Next time. We'll get right to it with Kevin, but first.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. This is the all-food edition of the Full Court Press this hour, by the way, because we're starting out with a story. Chipotle has announced that they are going to raise the prices of their food for the first time in 3 years. They have a pretty standard operation all across the country. They have their boards up, and it tells you how much things are going to cost. The average ticket when you go into Chipotle is $8 for a food item. They said that that's going to go up between 3 and 5%, which means you're paying an extra 24 to 40 cents for an $8 burrito or burrito bowl.
Yeah, McDonald's would never do that to me.
That's right. That's right. They're all about lowering prices.
Chipotle's a good chain. I went there a couple of days ago for a burrito bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love their bowls.
They're consistent.
They do a
They're
good job.
Yep.
They do a good job. Meanwhile, Domino's has rolled out what they are just calling specialty chicken. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I have.
There is really no way to describe this other than to say
Domino's Pizza?
Domino's Pizza.
Specialty chicken?
Yes. Here's the deal. There's really no better way to describe it than to just say it's almost like having a pizza, but instead of dough for the crust, they're using fried chicken.
That's healthy.
So it's a boneless piece of fried chicken that they're piling pizza toppings on top of.
Like what they call the chicken paillard.
Kind of like that. Yes, it's a very good description. And then you could get they're selling a spicy jalapeno pineapple, a crispy bacon and tomato, a sweet barbecue bacon, and a classic hot buffalo. So it's like pizza, but instead of dough, they're using heavily salted deep fried animal parts.
No.
Yeah, I don't think I could. I just like cheesesteaks. I grew up outside of Philly and hoagies. This whole we're gonna reinvent the bowl with chicken. I don't get it.
Yeah, give me a pizza.
Yeah.
No, give me a pizza, exactly.
Yeah.
So if it's pizza that you want, Bill, where do you go to get the best margarita pizza? Just a plain tomato.
The best
cheese
pizza
basil?
in the world is Seven Hill Pizza right next door to the studio.
You would think that,
No,
Bill.
it is. That's no, right here. Seriously,
Yeah.
it's the best.
You would think that. However, in Parma, Italy, they just held the Pizza World Championship, and the best pizza in the world is in
Italy.
Melbourne, Australia.
Oh.
Melbourne, Australia. It's a man that runs it by the name of Johnny DiFrancesco. So he is Italian.
He's Italian.
At least.
I'm Cirilli.
Exactly. He's an Italian guy in Melbourne who runs a small pizzeria called 400 Gradi. He defeated 600 contestants from around the globe.
Wow.
He has the best pizza margarita.
Wow.
Yeah, think of the airfare to get there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
Right, next story here. Next time, Kevin. 14 minutes now after the hour. You've been writing about Elizabeth Warren, who's making a little news these days because she has a new book coming out, a new book called A Fighting Chance. So is this like you throw the book out and the next you throw your hat in the ring for 2016?
Well, she has said repeatedly that she is not interested in running for president.
Why not?
Yeah. You would. There's a lot of people out there in the progressive wing of the party who are urging someone to challenge, presumably Hillary Clinton if she were to run. But, she has said repeatedly she's not interested in running. And from a 2014 perspective, though, I think what this does is really give her a voice for candidates who are running in the midterms and pushes them a little bit more to the left and provides cover for them as well, for them to model themselves after someone like a Senator Warren.
No, she's great. I'm a big, huge Elizabeth Warren fan. I've been somewhat surprised that she's taken such a low profile.
Very low
so
profile.
far in the Senate, right? I mean, deliberately.
Yeah.
She has, for example, for interviews, we've had a hard time getting her, and she hasn't done many interviews
She's not
at all.
done many interviews at all.
She's really laid back. So is this book kind of a way of her now coming out to be more visible and more active and more proactive, or what?
Well, I think it offers her an opportunity to tell her story by not following the traditional model of talking to reporters and the media. But I also think that it allows her to reintroduce herself on a national stage. So the last time folks heard from her, if you don't really follow politics closely, was during the Democratic National Convention when she introduced former President Bill Clinton. And before that, it was the most expensive Senate campaign ever with Scott Brown. And she talks a lot about that in her book. And so really she's painting herself as someone who is a struggling working class single mom at one point who put her way through law school and was able to go on to become a Harvard law professor and then launched herself into the Senate. That's sort of her story. But on the flip side, what's interesting for us political watchers is that the one mention of Hillary Clinton in this book is actually positive. So you can read into that whatever you'd want.
What I found fascinating is her description. I haven't read the book yet. Of her conversation with President Obama, when she's the one who came up with this idea for the Consumer Finance Protection Agency. It was her baby. She testified on the need for it. Helped get it through Congress.
Brutal battle, by the way.
Brutal battle, right? And then we all expected her to lead it up, and a lot of people wanted her to lead it up. And she goes in to see the president in the Oval Office, and he tells her he does not dare appoint her to head that agency because she made Senate Republicans and Wall Street bankers very nervous.
Yeah.
And so then he says to her, I'm just reading from this latest article, that he wants her to sort of help get it going. And she says, how can I help get it going when I'm not going to be the one who's heading it up? And he said to her, you're jamming me, Elizabeth.
And this was an hour meeting in the Oval Office.
You're jamming me, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Basically, take your care. You do what I want, but I'm not going to give you the job.
Well, here's a freshman senator. Let's remember this. Yeah. She's a freshman senator coming off raised a $52 million campaign with Scott Brown. I think that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, is a new bureau, a new agency that is extremely controversial right now. But there's two things I want to say to that. The first is, can you imagine if she was the director of the CFPB, she would not be in the Senate. And what she's been able to do in this book that she's just written, maybe, and the message that she's carrying, maybe wouldn't be as magnified.
In effect, Obama did her a favor by not appointing her to that agency.
And Richard Cordray.
And did the country a favor. But that's not why he did it.
That's not that. But Richard Cordray, the current director of the CFPB, as it's called, the consumer agency, wasn't confirmed until after the Senate rules change. Remember, a couple months.
Yeah.
So that was it was in limbo for a while. I do want to say back to this point that you made earlier about her relationship with the media. There was a fascinating article yesterday in the Boston Globe, Senator Warren's hometown paper, criticizing her and actually drawing the comparison with Senator Warren to limiting herself to media availability to comparing her to the CEOs of Wall Street who also don't talk to the media. They even noted, according to this Boston Globe report, it's a great read, they even noted that when a Globe reporter tried to interview her in the hallway about the Boston Marathon bombing anniversary, he was blocked by an aide, physically blocked. So it's a fascinating interview about how she has really tried to carefully manage her image. But it also comes when Richard Trumka this week.
I was going to ask you about that. Richard Trumka, head of the AFL-CIO, go ahead,
calls her the quote-unquote prototype candidate for 2016.
Which was close to an endorsement.
Yeah. So there is a lot going on. And I do want to ask you this, Bill, for your input. Do you think that the former Secretary of State Clinton, do you think that she should run unopposed in a primary?
No. No. I've said that many times. No. Bernie Sanders. Go, Bernie, go. Elizabeth Warren. Go, Elizabeth, go. No, absolutely. The more people in the primary, I believe, the better. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
I'm thinking of jumping in.
Or Rob Ford,
Bring on Rob Ford.
Oh, yeah. Put me in the same boat with him. Thanks a lot.
You two do have a lot in common.
What are we doing in the next segment here? I'm not sure.
Whiskey yet?
Boy, yeah. Look at the time.
When's the whiskey
No,
getting?
I would love to see Elizabeth Warren run. I think it's healthy for either party.
Yeah.
To have a primary, and I think particularly with Hillary, it'd be very important to have someone a strong challenge on the left.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to watch those cries from the progressives if they escalate as we get closer. Final point about the book that I want to make: she she designates an entire chapter to her Native American roots. This was something that was extremely controversial.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
During the Brown Warren campaign about how she might have used being a Native American.
Exaggerated the fact that she had Native American roots. Yeah.
But that is still, when you look at her narrative and how she's presenting herself, that is really not something that she has that she includes or not that she doesn't include it. I want to choose my words really carefully here, but it's not it's not a dominant part of her narrative. But she does address
a whole
it
chapter in the book on
and criticizes extensively the attacks against her during the Brown Warren campaign. Fascinating read. Comes out Monday.
Elizabeth Warren is called A Fighting Chance. Kevin Cirilli knows all about it. Give us a call. What do you think? I ask you that question. Should Hillary go unchallenged? Should Elizabeth Warren be the one to challenge her? 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full-time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're going to do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, lawyer? I said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity. And one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him. Because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is 26 minutes after the hour. Kevin Cirilli, Politico reporter for Politico, in studio with us. We've been talking about Elizabeth Warren, but Kevin, you've also, in writing the afternoon policy newsletter for Politico, you've been spending a lot of time on the Ukraine. Some movement yesterday in what looks like could be a positive direction. How do you read it?
You know, we're going to have to wait to see, because yesterday, Secretary of State John Kerry, meeting with foreign diplomats, including the Russian Prime Minister, they came out of that meeting hopeful that the tensions in the Ukraine would de-escalate. But the tensions in the Ukraine for the past 2 weeks have just been rising. Russia, yesterday, Vladimir Putin admitting, have been stirring the pot, stirring up these protests all along the eastern cities in the Ukraine, along the Ukraine-Russia border. And really, I think what people...
asserting his authority to do so.
Asserting...
right.
And claiming, that these are, Russia... or Ukraine belongs to Russia. But I think what people in America are having a hard time, I know I was, and the question that I get asked a lot, why should people care? Why should we care about Ukraine? And really what this comes down to is an oil pipeline that runs through the Ukraine and Russia, and this is how much of Europe gets their natural gas. And in 2009, Putin literally just flipped a switch and shut off this natural gas in winter. And so... it was cold. So that's what we're seeing.
All right. We hope that the actions will follow the words reached in Geneva yesterday. Kevin, great to see you. Happy Easter. Thanks for coming in.
Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis. Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I mean, I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, "Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about your next venture."
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
On a Friday morning, April 18, 33 minutes after the hour, President Obama making a rare and last-minute scheduled appearance in the White House briefing room yesterday to take another victory lap on Obamacare and to reflect on what could be good news in the direction of easing tensions in the East Ukraine. Justin Sink, colleague of mine in the briefing room. We're usually right in the same row or very close, sitting closely together at the White House briefings. Justin covering the White House for The Hill, joining us in studio this morning. Good to see you, friend. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Nice little appearance of the president yesterday in the briefing room, and bringing some good news about Obamacare. Right?
Yeah, he announced that they've now hit 8 million enrollees in the program. Which, I mean, if you think about just a couple months ago, it seems completely inconceivable. The original estimates before even any of the problems with the website, the best hopes for the administration were 7 million. To get 1 million past that is definitely kind of a big win for the administration.
It would have been even without losing 2 months over the website, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, had things gone flawlessly and they had 8 million, it would have been a surprising number. And
right.
So
they lost 2 months, and yet they still were able to catch up to the 7 million and exceed it by. I mean, you just can't deny that that's a huge success.
And you saw the president. I mean, he very clearly wanted to come out and make the message that we've done this. Let's turn the page. Let's focus on the economy. But he couldn't even help himself to sort of brag like this is working.
That's what he said. This is working,
and people are going to want to keep purchasing this health insurance millions more down the road. And so it definitely had the feel of kind of a victory lap for the president, but, a deserved one considering where the website was a few months ago. The other kind of interesting thing was he talked about the enrollees under 35, and he said 35% of the people on the federal exchanges were under 35. It's a bit of a deceptive number because the kind of key demographic is 18 to 35, and he was lumping in kids who are signed up under their parents' plan. So he's playing a little fast and loose with that number, but still, it's certainly an indication that the share of those people who are signing up has gotten younger, has gotten healthier, and that's
the real number is 28%.
Right,
isn't it?
exactly.
Which, by the way, ain't bad.
No.
You know, I was reading this. The New York Times points out this morning that some analysts, right, said 40% young under 35 would be ideal, but that the insurance companies didn't expect more than 28%. So this is kind of in their ballpark.
It's in their ballpark. The one catch is that they did need the number to be a little bit higher to prevent premiums from rising at all next year. And for, you know, an entire system that's designed on low premiums, having people be able to buy in, writing a check to an insurance company where they weren't doing it in the past, keeping those premiums as low as possible is what you want to do. Now, on the flip side of that, the number is not going to have these premiums skyrocket or spiral out in the way that people were worried about. And
right, because, I mean, it's built in.
Exactly.
They cannot raise their premiums more than 10% without really justifying why they have to do so.
And on top of that, we saw in the CBO report earlier this week that because of the impact that Obamacare is having on the system as a whole, premiums and healthcare costs are rising at a far lower rate than we've seen in previous years. And so, you know, we're all used to even our employers raising premiums, what we have to pay in, if that's how your healthcare works, and healthcare costs rising every year. And so the good news is that'll kind of continue as it has been at a quote-unquote reasonable pace.
Here's what I don't understand. And he also talked about, he talks about the Ukraine. I want to get your comments on that as well. But to stick with Obamacare for a second, here's what I don't understand. So we were in the Rose Garden last week. The president said 7.1 million. Right. The briefing room yesterday, 8 million. And justifiably taking a little victory lap and saying this is working and kind of turning the corner to now let's talk about the good news about Obamacare. Are we going to see him take that on the road? I don't understand why they haven't done that. So, like last week after the Rose Garden, the next day he was on the road, talking about minimum wage.
Right.
Well, minimum wage is important. I mean, it's not. But I thought he'd be out there saying, Obamacare, you know, we've got to start talking as Democrats, it seems to me. He should be telling them about what's going on, how many people have signed up, and all the good news about Obamacare.
I think the problem...
Are we going to see that, do you think?
I don't think we're going to see that, and I think that he telegraphed it by saying, I'm ready to turn my focus, and he said this a couple times, to what the American people care about, which is jobs and the economy. And it's an interesting read by the White House. I think they're looking at the polls, and I don't know if it's what Americans are focused on, probably more than anything else. But it's also certainly the ground where Democrats think that they have the greatest advantage. So Obamacare, even though, you know, the president has had these recent successes, still polls are very divided on it. At best, half the country supports it, half the country doesn't. You go into the president's economic proposals, raising the minimum wage, extending unemployment insurance. Those are the sort of things that have 2/3 or more of the country behind it, where you can draw a sharp contrast with the Republicans. The problem is that economic message, whether it's because of Ukraine or whether it's because of this Obamacare news that keeps coming up and up, just hasn't gained any traction yet. And so we, you know, see the president going at least once a week out on the road trying to tout these things, and it just doesn't generate headlines. He said, you know, in the speech last week, he's like, I know I sound like a broken record. And I think that's what I ended up using as the headline of my piece, because we just, you know, at this point, it's not breaking through. That said, talking to some people at the White House, what they think is now that you've got this Obamacare success, it sort of wipes the windshield on some of this bad news. And they do think that they've got an opening, an opportunity to try to reestablish that economic message. And they need that ammunition going into the midterms, because the map is just not favorable to Democrats.
Well, if I were one of those advisors at the White House, I have to tell you, I would not separate them, because I think you can make the case. I think they could make Obamacare part of their economic message. So we are, as contrasted with the Republicans, we are the party that is there fighting for the middle class, to raise the minimum wage, to extend unemployment benefits, to give women equal pay to men, the Paycheck Fairness Act, and to give health insurance to every American who could never afford it before. And so package Obamacare as part of that message, because it basically is a middle-class program, right? So I don't know why they see them as distinctly different. They're not. To me, they're part of the same message.
I would guess that the trick is that that's an effective national message, right? And so we saw the president handedly win re-election, not running away from his law, and that being the central issue of the campaign.
Right.
The trick is he did horribly in states like Louisiana and Alaska, where Democrats now have to play ball, and just, even those are some of the states who are going to benefit the most.
There's another potential, I think, opportunity here, and that is there are 24 states now that where governors have refused to accept Medicaid expansion. 3 million people have signed up under Medicaid expansion in the states that allow it. But I think it said 5.7 million are eligible but can't get it because their Republican governors in these red states have said, I don't want anything to do with this program. But I think there's another opportunity there to go after the Republicans on that issue. Why not? I mean, why would they turn this down when it's 100% paid for by the federal government?
This is going on in Virginia, right across the river from us. And where I went to high school, I have high school friends who tried to sign up for health care, kind of fell in that loophole. And there's a real sense of anger and frustration. I mean, we saw the governor of Virginia actually get voted out despite him trying, Ken Cuccinelli. Republicans lost the state of Virginia. Ken Cuccinelli, who was the attorney general running on the Republican side, tried to make Obamacare into a big issue. And you saw voters who were starting to realize the impact of...
And I think Terry McAuliffe as governor will change that. I think Virginia's going to come. Yeah.
He's trying. The problem is the Virginia House of Delegates, as always, is kind of causing them some trouble. But that was one example where you saw Democrats able to use Obamacare as a wedge issue and get some traction with it.
So in some of these red states, I think even if they don't get the governorship, maybe they can put enough pressure on the governor to sign up for Medicaid. I think, from our callers and our listeners, we hear a lot from people in these red states, who see the opportunity. They just can't take advantage of it, and it's only because of their governor.
Texas is a great example of this.
Huge.
There are millions of uninsured people in Texas who would
more in
benefit
Texas
from this
than any
program.
other state.
Exactly, and this has been kind of a central focus for the administration. But Rick Perry has just kind of taken this ideological stance that he's not going to sign up for it and accept the federal dollars, and it's going to be interesting from a state's competitive economically point of view too. You always hear about states creating tax cuts, creating incentives for businesses to come in, doing whatever they can to draw workers in. And in a situation like here, if you were somebody moving to the D.C. region looking for a job, you'd certainly be more inclined to move into the district or move into Maryland than you would to move into Virginia, simply because they're going to provide health insurance or a subsidy for health insurance in a way that makes a huge kind of impact on your bottom line and your healthiness.
Things in Texas will change, by the way, under Governor Wendy Davis. Let's switch to Ukraine when we come back, and your comments. Welcome on the Obamacare. The news yesterday, very, very good news for the president, for the administration, for Democrats, for the American people, I believe. Unfortunately, not for those of you still living in these red states. 866-55-PRESS, Justin Sink with us from the Hill.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 12 minutes before the top of the hour. At the top of the next hour, we're talking with the AFL-CIO about their latest numbers on executive compensation and the growing gap between the very, very rich and average workers in this country. That's the subject of my column, by the way. Weekly column for the Chicago Tribune, which is out today, and we will be tweeting that out if we haven't already done so.
We haven't yet, but we will soon. So.
Well, get on it.
You're very right. I'm sorry.
At top of the next hour. And then at the half hour, yes, indeed, if you haven't already heard about it, stay tuned for your whiskey update of the day. We're going to have from.
How did I miss out on that?
Every guest so far has complained about the fact that they're not here for the whiskey brew.
They're going to walk us through
Beuchert Saloon.
The whole They're going to walk us through the whole thing of like whiskey, rye, bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
I should have a card at Beuchert's, like, to get the 11th drink free and be able to cash all of those in here on the Bill Press Show. I don't understand what's going on.
Stick around.
All right, yeah. No, this just gives me an idea for the next time we have any booze in the studio, right?
Yeah. We should auction off the slot. Exactly.
The slot.
Come in and have a booze tasting.
Right. Justin Sink here from The Hill. Before we get to the Ukraine, Paul from up in Helena, New York. Hello, Paul. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I got for Obamacare, and Obamacare did the best thing for me. And, it's like the Republicans don't have no things for little people. They all want the rich. I'm going to switch from Republican to Democrat.
All right.
It's stupid.
Well, good, Paul. Glad you had that experience. Justin, this is the thing that we heard so many stories about people who had problems getting on the website or da-da-da-da-da. Now they got to turn it around, it seems to me, and start telling stories about people like Paul who were never able to get health care before, and now 14 million have it.
That was one of the most interesting parts of the president's press conference. He took time out of his remarks to highlight the stories of sort of ordinary Americans who had seen their lives really changed by the Affordable Care Act, and that's something that Democrats, it's going to be a very powerful tool for them as they look to try to battle back and regain some ground.
I agree. Repeating myself, I know, but I think he's got to do that. He did that in the Rose Garden. He did it yesterday, and take those stories out on the road. He's so good when he gets out on the road in front of a big crowd and tell these stories and just say, and then the Republican, what, you're going to take Jeannie's health care away from her now, right? You're going to make her, because she had a pre-existing condition, you're going to take her health insurance away from her now?
Well, the big advantage for Democrats is the math has changed now, right? So before it was a hypothetical benefit down the road, something that people might see. Now you have, between people who've bought insurance through the exchanges, people who are kids who are still on their parents' health insurance, people who had pre-existing conditions that can get coverage now, people who qualified for Medicaid, just millions and millions of people who now Republicans have to come up with a plan that somehow won't cost more money, will keep these people covered in some way, and it's a tall task for them, and it's why they haven't quite coalesced around a plan yet, and I'm curious to see if we'll see that.
Well, remember, Republicans did come up with a plan. The American Heritage Foundation developed it, and it's the Affordable Care Act. Mitt Romney did it first in Massachusetts, and then President Obama did. They just don't recognize it anymore. But quickly, on the Ukraine, should we be hopeful about what we saw in Geneva yesterday?
I think we should be cautiously optimistic. Talking to foreign policy experts kind of leading up to the deal, they all said kind of time and time again, Russia wants a negotiated diplomatic solution out of here. And the U.S. doesn't have a huge incentive other than to try to maintain international order. And to do that, that means including the people of Ukraine in this process as some sort of solution gets negotiated out. So we saw an early framework come out. That said, it's certainly wait and see over the next few days. Secretary Kerry said that he wanted to see progress by early next week. It's very volatile right now. It's unclear to the extent to which Moscow actually has control of some of these separatists within Ukraine.
Yeah.
But, all things considered, I think the meeting went as well as it possibly could.
Sure. And when they said, that the key is that these separatists will abandon the buildings that they've taken over and turn in their weapons, and then they will not be held responsible, right? Amnesty for them. I'll believe that when I see it. But that certainly would be the first step toward easing the tensions and then having the elections and then maybe some kind of autonomy for that part of Ukraine.
Exactly. And, it's what we've seen over the last week has been violence, bombs and gun battles and that sort of thing. And these are in, mostly quiet, kind of not big cities, and they're having kind of a dangerous impact. And there's a big incentive for kind of everybody involved to scale things back.
Right.
And it does seem like there is some sort of window.
Looks like we could be heading toward a diplomatic solution here, which would be the best for all parties concerned. Justin Sink, happy Easter, my friend. Thank you so much for coming in today. Okay. We have a briefing today at the White House, and I'll tell you the rest of the president's schedule today when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, if you like the first 2 hours, we'll just wait till hour number 3. Coming up here on the Bill Press Show, we're going to start out by talking with a spokesperson from the AFL-CIO about the astounding numbers on income inequality just released on their website, showing that the gap between the very, very rich and average Americans is getting wider and wider and wider. And then it's too early to go out to the bar, so we're going to bring the bar to us and sample whiskey at the end of our third hour, whiskey for this Easter weekend. 2 good reasons for staying with us for hour number 3.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years. I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Executive compensation and whiskey in the next hour. Those 2 good reasons for staying around.
Yeah.
President Obama today, actually a full day of meetings on this Good Friday at the White House. He will be meeting with, after he gets a daily briefing, meeting with the Treasury Secretary, Jack Lew, this morning. This afternoon, meeting with the National Commander of the American Legion. And then he will be presenting the Commander-in-Chief Trophy to the United States Naval Academy football team in the Rose Garden, rather. Nothing the president enjoys better than welcoming sports teams to the White House. That should be a festive occasion this afternoon. Jay Carney has his briefing with all of us at 1 o'clock.
This is the Bill Press Show.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org. to let us know your thoughts.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governor should come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we've took 4 pay cuts. And then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. Not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100 and I'm 81 years old and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
broadcasting around the nation on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
8 million people, says President Obama. 8 million people signed up for Obamacare, exceeding the goal by 1 million. Huge success. Obamacare is working and it's here to stay. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday. Good Friday, April 18. Great to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us, The Bill Press Show. We roll into hour number 3 here from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. All across this great land of ours, we are there with you on your local progressive talk radio station. Thank you for being with us this morning. And we are there with you worldwide on our video stream, Talker TV, TAWKR TV, youtube.com/Talker TV. With the team here this morning, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Happy Friday.
Good morning.
How about it?
Hey now.
Yeah, all right.
Alicia Cruz, she's there, ready to take your calls, again, at 866-55-PRESS. Monty Kensler here on the video camera, keeping us looking good on that video stream worldwide. And, of course, we know the big news yesterday didn't come from the White House, didn't come from the State Department, didn't come from the Pentagon. No, it came from a little event, women's event for young women students in Lower Manhattan when Chelsea Clinton, sitting on stage with her mother right alongside of her, breaks the big news.
Mark and I are very excited that we have our first child arriving later this year. And
she's pregnant. There you are. How about it? Yes, indeed. Baby George. Prince George, get out of the way. Get out of the way, man. You are so yesterday, so history.
American royalty now.
We got American royalty.
You know, earlier in the week.
In fact, there's maybe a little matchmaker here.
Oh. We can combine the powers of England and the United States.
There it is.
And
yes.
nothing will be able to stop us. Earlier in the week, Chelsea was asked about her political aspirations, and she made clear that she has some, and she's not ruling anything out. So I think that this was her first test, and I think she passed because she certainly got the good news of the healthcare numbers that the president announced yesterday. She trumped him with her baby news.
She trumped everything.
She knows how to capture a cycle.
Yeah, and you know what? Hillary was sitting there saying, "Watch my poll numbers go up now." Yeah. And of course, the conservatives they're quick to jump on this. The family party, right? The pro-family party.
Yeah.
The Dredge headline was "Grandma Hillary."
Yeah.
Like, she's too old to be president. She's a grandma.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, George H.W. Bush was a grandpa in the White House. Ronald Reagan was a grandpa in the White House.
Yep.
Just trying to think who else might have been.
Mitt Romney would have been several times over if he had won.
Yeah.
He's got, 18 grandkids?
They would have had to build an addition to the White House to handle all of his grandchildren. About it. So a big hour coming up. We're going to talk executive compensation here with the AFL-CIO right at the top of the hour. And yes, we're looking forward to it. The half hour, welcoming the co-owner of Beuchert's Saloon right down on Pennsylvania Avenue here to tell us all about what whiskey is good for you and which ones are the best ones to drink. I'm an eager student.
There you go.
Here we go. All right. But first, Peter's got the big headlines.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Bill, I don't know if you knew this.
When it comes to whiskey, I'm really a virgin.
Well,
I don't drink whiskey.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad. Maybe you'll find out that you love it.
I think Peter is too.
And maybe, I don't touch the stuff. Yeah. No. Maybe you'll love it. Maybe it'll make you mean. Who knows? I don't know if you knew this, but there are websites out there that will instruct diners and partygoers the best restaurant bathrooms to have sex in. And it turns out Washington, D.C. is a hot spot for bathrooms for diners to go and have sex in.
What is this app? I have to download this app.
No, you don't want to download that. Well, the Washington City paper's Young and Hungry, Jessica Sidman, wrote about here in Washington, D.C., Trist and Adams Morgan was listed as one of these places. It's very good to have. Stop taking notes. I'm not encouraging you to do this.
No, but Tris
it's a fitting name.
A name like Tris.
Right,
but there's a very funny story she writes about in the Washington City paper. That
what are the others? Is there any on Capitol Hill?
Would you stop?
Are there any on Capitol Hill?
Within walking distance to your house? The owner of Tris found out that the sink in the bathroom kept coming away from the wall. It was a wall-mounted sink. And he had no idea what was happening.
Oh, God.
And so he found that his restaurant was listed on the site.
TMI.
So now he has all of the sinks have sort of supports on the bottom of it to hold up whoever might be sitting.
How handy is that?
On the sink. See, so it's not like he's encouraging it, but he has to find it.
Okay.
So
what other restaurants?
Also on the list, Bill, the Palm.
Oh.
No. I'm not kidding.
No.
I'm not kidding.
I go
It was
to
in the top 3.
I go to the Palm all the time.
Well, have you ever had sex in the bathroom? Then how do you know? Wait a minute. You didn't answer that question. Never mind.
I'm not
You
talking.
didn't answer the question. Oh, God almighty.
No. But I was thinking of having lunch at the Palm today.
Get
out. No, this is BS.
Wash your hands.
No, this is BS.
Wash your hands.
This is BS.
That's rated out by diners.
Sorry.
By diners. Shout out to Mitchell Casado. We've seen him on TV. He's the guy, the expert that's been in the cockpit with Martin Savage during all of their coverage of the missing Malaysian Airlines flight. He worked for You Fly, a Canadian company that had the flight simulator. He was let go. Martin Savage earlier this week moved on. He went to a different area. He's no longer going to be in the cockpit. And as soon as he left,
they fired this guy.
The U-Fly fired him. A statement from the owner said, quote, "Even though I let him be on TV, he shamed us Canadians and shamed my company with the way he was dressing like he was 15 years old."
He wore a plaid shirt and slacks or something.
And jeans.
And that plaid shirt got a lot of notoriety.
I'm sorry, but he put that company on the map.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nobody was talking about them before.
And he was good. He knew his stuff.
Yeah. Well, he's out of a job.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
And you know what? CNN producers told him not to wear a tie, I'm sure.
I'm sure you're right about that.
Yeah.
Because Martin Savage didn't have a tie on.
That's right. And congratulations to Isis Romero. She is the co-anchor of KSAT's News in San Antonio, Texas. She is expecting her first child as well. Only one problem. The father is the co-anchor of the competitor's news, the competing news station, KENS, also in San Antonio, Phil Anaya. They are on competing stations. They are competing anchors, and they are also a couple expecting their first child.
It's like James Carville and Mary Madeline.
That's it. Yeah, exactly right.
All right. Who gets to announce it first? Interesting.
Who gets the scoop?
Here we are. If you check out my column today on our website, BillPressShow.com, it's entitled CEO Compensation Rises and Income Gap Widens. Must admit, my principal source for that is the AFL-CIO and their website and their latest study on executive compensation. Very, very important information. Brandon Rees is the deputy director of the Office of Investment at the AFL-CIO, joins us on our news line this morning. Hi, Brandon. Good work. Good to have you with us this morning.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me.
So we have found, just give me the numbers, give us our viewers and our listeners the numbers on, for example, what an average worker makes today versus what your average CEO makes today.
Yes. The average CEO of an S&P 500 company made $11.6 million in total compensation in 2013. That compares to the average pay of a production and non-supervisory worker, a rank-and-file worker in our economy who made just $35,000 in 2013. So the ratio of CEO to worker pay was 331 times last year. That's up from just 46 times back 30 years ago in 1983. So we've had this dramatic increase in inequality inside our corporations and inside the workplace.
It keeps getting getting wider and wider and wider, this gap, correct? And then what I thought was most stunning, Brenda, is where you show how long a minimum wage worker would have to work, how many hours, right, to equal 1 hour of a CEO's time.
That's right. So the average CEO of an S&P 500 company made 774 times a federal minimum wage full-time employee last year, 774 times. One of the problems with our economy is that the federal minimum wage has not been increased. It's still at $7.25 an hour. If you're a tipped employee, you work in a restaurant, for example, the federal minimum wage is $2.13 an hour. And tipped workers are 3 times as likely to live in poverty as other workers in our economy. So we do have this crisis in wages. Wages have been stagnant in this country for everybody but CEOs and the top 1%. And that's the problem because it's holding down economic growth.
Right. The top 1% has done very well. So this rising tide has not lifted all boats, for sure, correct?
That's right. So if the minimum wage had increased with economic growth and productivity since 1968, the level it was at 1968, today's minimum wage would be $18.30 an hour.
Yeah.
If the minimum wage had kept up with the income growth of the top 1%, the minimum wage would be $31.45 an hour. So you can see that we really face a wage crisis. We need to raise wages. Politicians need to increase the minimum wage. Companies need to pay their workers a living wage. And workers need to have a collective voice on the job to demand wage increases.
Now, 2 questions then. What are the factors that contribute to this increasing inequality gap? I mean, government policies, right, and actions are responsible for a good deal of it.
Yes, so there's policies that the minimum wage has been stagnant in this country and has been losing ground to inflation. There's also just runaway CEO pay. One of and people can read about this phenomenon on our Executive Pay Watch website at paywatch.org. But one of the phenomenons is that when it comes time to pay CEOs, companies compare CEOs to other CEOs. It's called peer group analysis. And the problem with that methodology is that they're cherry picking. They're picking high-paid CEOs, larger companies. Some companies consciously pay above average because they think their CEO is above average. I've yet to see a company pay below average. The problem, of course, is mathematically, not everyone can be above average, and the average rises from year to year. There's no consideration of pay disparities when paying the CEO, how it impacts other employees of the company, what other companies are paid. That can have a very negative impact on employee morale and productivity.
So in addition to raising the minimum wage, which may not do much but is certainly a damn good start, what are the other actions that the AFL-CIO recommends to try to level the playing field at least or make it a little more fair?
Yes. So, you're absolutely right. Raising the minimum wage. We have a petition on our website at paywatch.org that visitors can sign to demand that the minimum wage be raised to $10.10 an hour. That's a start. We've also been calling for disclosure of pay ratios at individual companies, which is actually part of the law. It's part of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act that was passed in 2010. But it's been stagnant, has not been implemented by the Securities and Exchange Commission because corporations and corporate executives have been lobbying fiercely against having to disclose how much they pay their median employee. If companies had to disclose how much they pay their median employee, it would allow investors to support companies that are investing in their workplace, investing in high wages, high productivity companies. It would also allow us to know which companies have high pay disparities and which ones have a more egalitarian compensation structure between the CEO and other employees. So I'm very eagerly waiting for this pay ratio disclosure rule to go into effect. But it's something that is very controversial within the corporate executive community and in the country clubs.
And of course, President Obama has recommended the Buffett rule, right, which would be a minimum 30% for anybody making over $1 million a year, which would also be a way of maybe spreading the wealth, if we can use that phrase anymore.
Well, it's more about making corporate CEOs pay their fair share. And you're right to highlight tax policy is an important factor as well, not just for income taxes to make sure corporate CEOs are paying more than their secretaries, but also to ensure that our corporate tax code is not encouraging companies to offshore jobs overseas. by, for example, allowing them to defer paying income taxes on the profits that they earn overseas. This tax deferral is costing the federal government billions of dollars a year, money that could be used to invest in jobs, invest in infrastructure, invest in education.
Well, it's very, very important information. I encourage everybody. We'll have a link on our website to paywatch.org. It's under the broad AFL-CIO.org website. Brandon, I just want you to know, I mentioned this yesterday on our program, that ratio of 331 to 1, I want to make it clear that I would be happy to work as a CEO of any of these companies. I'd go 20 to 1. I'd take it, or maybe 30 to 1 or whatever. So I just want to put that out there. If anybody's looking for a CEO willing to work for considerably less than 331 to 1, I'm your man. You got it?
I hear that. I agree 100%. Perhaps if corporate CEOs weren't 95% white male and corporations were looking for other pools of talent, they could perhaps find someone who'd be willing to do the job for a little bit less compensation.
Good point. They could. Good people, too. Thanks, Brandon, for your great work. Say hello to all of our friends over there at the AFL-CIO. Talk to you again.
Thank you.
All right, Brandon Rees. It's AFL-CIO.org, paywatch.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour now here, Friday morning. I will see you this evening on MSNBC on Politics Nation with the Reverend Al Sharpton at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 Central. And I'll be back again on Tuesday evening with Reverend Al on MSNBC. Some political news out of my home state of Delaware. Beau Biden, son of Joe. What a great name. Beau Biden. Son of Joe Biden, of course, has announced that he is going to run for governor of Delaware to succeed Governor Jack Markell, who is termed out. Beau Biden, the Attorney General of Delaware, I think has a great chance of being elected the new governor, and he'll do a great job. The Biden dynasty.
That's right, man.
Continues. Right. Interesting news today out of Hillary's daughter and Joe's son. So the two families are competing here a little bit for the headlines.
The next generation.
The other thing I just wanted to mention the passing of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, one of the greatest writers of all time, and certainly the greatest, I think, writer of our time. And if you don't know his work, and if you haven't benefited from his work, if you have not read 100 Years of Solitude, if you have not read Love in the Time of Cholera, then I got to tell you, right now, just drop whatever you're doing, turn the radio off, turn the TV off, don't go to work today, go out to the bookstore, get those two novels, and then sit down and do yourself a great treat. It might take you some time to get through them, but they are two of the best novels of all time. And they have to be part of everyone's life. Gabriel Garcia Marquez dying yesterday at his home in Mexico City at the age of 87. When we come back, if whiskey is on your mind, we're going to tell you all about it. Stay tuned.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more? How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
Enough.
Enough. Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook. Demand a plan. No more lists of names.
It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we are, 33 minutes after the hour now. Friday morning, Good Friday, April 18. I can't think of a better Friday than this Friday. If you could see, those of you in Radioland, if you could only see the collection of bottles that we have in front of us, bottles of whiskey, all different kinds of whiskey, brought to us by the co-owner of Beuchert's Saloon. A fairly new place, very exciting place, a wonderful place, just down Pennsylvania Avenue from our studio. Brendan McMahon is a co-owner of Beuchert's, and he's kind enough to come in this morning. Hey, Brendan, good to see you.
Good morning, Bill. Thank you for having me.
How many of these are we going to sample? There are six bottles of whiskey in front of us.
Five. There are five bottles of whiskey.
One just disappeared. Well, how many of these are we going to sample?
We're going to try and make it through all six, but we play by ear.
Well, I had planned
breakfast.
You see that bag over there? I had planned to go to the gym right after the program today. I may have second thoughts after this, but I have to. So I want us to just start out, and again, really, thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
I'm not a whiskey drinker. Okay, I'm a Bombay Sapphire,
we'll change that
Bombay
today.
Sapphire Martini, or maybe some good rum or something. But teach me what is the story here? Where do we start?
So the story of whiskey is about 700 years old, going back to the 1400s. The Irish and the Scottish like to argue over who invented whiskey. Our real first proof is in the 1490s when there's a bill of sale by the Scottish for whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and there are different kinds of whiskey, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
That I think is the hardest thing for people to come over, or to get past, is when you hear whiskey, there are just so many different ways to drink whiskey.
So in England, when they say whiskey, they mean Scotch.
Okay.
Okay.
And so we've adopted a whiskey as our native spirit. Bourbon specifically in 1964 was deemed America's native spirit, but bourbon also just being a whiskey.
Just one of
the many whiskeys. No. I mean, when we're talking about whiskeys, we have American whiskey, we have Scottish whiskey, Irish whiskey, there's Japanese whiskey. So there's
prison whiskey, toilet wine.
But there's bourbon, there's Scotch, rye. Is that another?
Rye, yes. Rye is an American whiskey. So in American whiskeys, we have three, right? We have bourbon, we have rye, and we have Tennessee whiskey.
Okay, let's get started. What did you bring, and why, and what do you?
So I brought one specific distillery is Michter's. The reason I brought it is because we carry their entire line.
Where are they from?
This is in Kentucky. Currently, yeah. They trace their roots back to Pennsylvania. Actually, John Schenck was a Mennonite farmer. In the 1770s, he
Mennonites can drink, man. They throw down. I don't know if you knew that. They go crazy.
He established a distillery there. They traced their roots back to, which was one of the first distilleries in America. And they claim that Michter's was drank at Valley Forge by George Washington and his troops, and they claim that they kept the American Revolution warm through a cold winter.
Let's get patriotic.
Yeah, right. So which is the best of them?
I mean, that's up to you, Bill. It's all personal choice. I happen to be a really big fan of Rees. Rees was much more popular as a whiskey than bourbon before Prohibition. But it's now in the last 5-6 years has really come back into popularity.
Okay. You want to try some of the rye?
Sure. Yeah. And you drink it neat, right? I mean, straight.
All these are intended to have a little bit of water in some form added to them to open them up. Whether that be just water or ice, that dilutes it a little bit in some form, or soda water. It's intended to kind of open up the. And
I'm not the only one drinking here.
Yeah, no. I'll get in there.
Get in
okay.
there.
Yeah.
Let me
right.
pour you some. There you go. Just a little bit. We got a lot to go.
So we don't have any water here, though. But
well, I mean,
that's all right. So what you're looking for in rye, you'll notice as a grain, as opposed to bourbon, which has a large makeup of corn.
Good morning.
Right?
Wow.
Bourbon has a large makeup of corn. The rye grain, as opposed to wheat grain that you'll have more of in bourbon, is going to be spicier.
It's definitely, that's why I like rye, is because it's like a spicy, especially in winter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I usually carry around a flask of rye.
And as we've
he's not joking.
Cocktail, revolution and spirit revolution, we're going to micro distilleries again. The spicier flavors, is kind of winning over a lot of the bourbon drinkers, and people are moving to that because it's very similar, just not quite as sweet and soft as a bourbon.
What mixed drinks would you make with this? Or would you?
No, absolutely would. Something that Beuchert's is really well known for is our old fashions. We make a really fantastic old fashioned. People that are young, 22, to people that are in their 70s that have drank old fashions at different times, really come in there and compliment us on our old fashions.
And a real old fashioned has rye, right?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I like to make old fashioned with whatever spirit anybody wants.
Sure.
Rum, old fashioned. I like to make them with rye now, currently. Yeah. I just think it's really nice because we do put a little bit of Demerara sugar in there, which is an unrefined sugar that adds a lot of earthy notes and depth to it, and people really enjoy that. Also, Sazerac, which is a traditional New Orleans cocktail. It's the official cocktail of Louisiana and the city of New Orleans. We use rye whiskey in that as well.
That's a great cocktail.
Yeah, it is. It is. And our bartenders at Beuchert's do a really good job of executing that. So.
You can check out, by the way, Beuchert's Saloon. It's BEUCHERTS, BeuchertSaloon.com, some of the different selections. I like that. And what's next, Peter?
Well,
you got several bourbons there, no? More than one bourbon?
So what we have is we have actually just one bourbon.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then we have a straight rye, which is what we just tried.
Yeah.
We have an American whiskey, which is essentially just bourbon. But the one thing they do is they take this after it's aged in new oak barrels, because bourbon's required to be in new oak barrels for 2 years. Then they put it in a used bourbon barrel, rather.
Oh.
And so that gives it a lot more characteristic, a lot more flavor, a lot more caramel and vanilla notes from the wood. And the bourbon that's already soaked into the barrel, into the stage.
So it's an older bourbon, is that right?
It's not necessarily older, but it's aged once again in bourbon barrels. Like they use bourbon barrels one time, and then they use them to age Scotch and other things in, but they can't reuse them for bourbon. It has to be brand new barrels for bourbon. That's one of the laws regarding bourbon.
All right.
Then we have a sour mash. So in American whiskey, you have two types of mash. You have a sweet mash and a sour mash. A sweet mash just refers to the first use of that mash of the ground up grinds or grains rather in corn. A sour mash is when they take some of the previous mash that's already been fermented and they add it back, and that's to keep a consistency of pH balance and a consistency of yeast going throughout the.
All right, what are we drinking next, Peter?
So we had rye before. This is bourbon.
This is a 10-year bourbon.
10-year bourbon.
10-year aged, and so the other Michter's. This is just the 2-year aged.
Uh-huh.
And Michter's is unique in the fact that they're one of the.
A lot, Peter.
One of the.
Rob, that's not.
Maybe not fight about it.
What was Peter saying? He wasn't going to drink today?
You just want that? Is that all you want?
No, a little more than that.
That's what I'm saying.
All right. Okay.
All right,
Okay. All right. Good enough.
Michter's is one of the few distilleries in the country that was making rye all along. And so they've been aging it. So they're getting ready to release very soon a 10-year aged rye, which is very unique.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you'll see that, 5-10 years from now, you see a lot more of that. But for the moment, they're one of the few that will have it.
That bourbon is what I think of when I think of whiskey.
That's delicious.
And
the difference between that and rye is night and day. I mean, this is like a sweet. Caramel is an overused word, I think, when you talk about food and drink.
No, but you get it. Yeah, absolutely. And that's based on all bourbons are primarily made up from corn. That's the sugar that we're being made from, and then the grains come in for the flavoring. But the corn is 51 to 80% of that mash.
So again, if I want bourbon like this, do I really want to drink it with water?
Well, maybe I wouldn't necessarily drink it with water. I would drink it maybe on the rocks, but that would allow it to get a little bit of dilution, like a larger rock too, something that's larger that chills it, dilutes it a little bit, but not too much. I love whenever I have a new aged spirit to use that Sazerac or use the old fashioned as my litmus test kind of for how well that stands up and performs, because it really plays well with a little bit of sugar, a little bit of water, and a little bit of bitters. I mean,
it's
really
delicious. That's really good.
That is very good. Okay, I'm ready for another one here. Just looking. So you have Scotch.
I brought an Islay Scotch. So there's 5 regions in Scotland of Scotch. You have Highlands, the Lowlands, Campbelltown, Speyside, and Islay. And Islay is one of the stronger, heavy, peated, smoky Scotches. And this is we use this in a classic cocktail called Blood and Sand, where it has orange juice and cherry herring, some very sweet flavors, and it balances that out really well.
So this is not made from corn? The Scotch is made from what?
No, Scotch is made from grain.
Grain.
You have wheat, barley, sometimes oats, those things. So that's one. I mean, when you talk about just geographically the flavor difference, Scotches aren't going to be ever as sweet as our American whiskeys because they don't use that corn. They don't have it.
Yeah.
And they're peated because they what they do is they start the grains into germination by adding water to them, let them start to germinate because that turns the starch to sugar, and they stop that by drying them. And what the Scotches do is they do that over peat, and so they allow that it's open so the smoke goes in and it gets all that peaty flavor in there, which is the difference between them and Irish whiskeys. Where Irish whiskeys it's a closed kiln, so they're not allowed to absorb all that peatiness.
Okay. So shall we take a break while we pour these?
Let's take a break and we come back. You can stick around for a little while.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Can you hang with us, Peter, here?
Can I hang with you?
No, I just
you want to fight about it?
I just want to keep up with you.
The boot is getting a break today.
Yeah.
It is the whiskey tasting time here on the Bill Press Show on Good Friday. What the hell? We've been through rye and bourbon so far. We've got other bourbons. We've got mash. We've got the American whiskey and Scotch coming up here on a special Friday edition.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus McMahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Now, 12 minutes before the top of the hour, it's Friday morning. Cheers. We are sampling and learning about, this is purely an educational experience.
Oh, yeah.
Learning about various kinds of whiskey with Brendan McMahon, who is co-owner of a great place, Beuchert's Saloon. Check it out next time you're in Washington, D.C. The exact address on Pennsylvania is
623 Pennsylvania Avenue.
623. It's between 2nd and 3rd, right? Is it?
Between 6th and 7th, just right across the street. Yeah.
6th and 7th, that close. Okay,
Absolutely.
6th and 7th on Pennsylvania Avenue here, southeast. Have to know the right quadrant. And we have sampled so far bourbon and the rye, and now we've got the Scotch. Tell us about it.
So this is LaFroy.
By the way, can I ask you an impertinent question?
Yes.
What is the calorie count of a glass of whiskey?
Well, I mean, we don't discuss that.
Who cares is the answer.
Who cares? All right. Okay.
Well, the important thing is that the sugars in these distilled spirits are turned to sugar alcohol, so they don't really count on your on your sugar or carbohydrate index. So if you're on that kind of diet, it's a real winner.
I was really worried because I have Pilates later on, and I don't want to have to admit that.
Okay. All right. Now tell us about the Scotch.
So this is Lafroig. This is a 10-year aged Islay Scotch. So as we were discussing, the Scotches are dried over peat fire. So you're going to get a lot of smoke, and the peat coming from the Islay region is going to have a lot of salinity in it. So you're going to get a really
total different smell.
It's like sets it off, right? Like you can tell it's from a mile away. Mm-hmm. I mean, think of it like this, right?
Whoa.
Bacon is smoked, and you eat that at breakfast.
Yeah.
So Scotch whiskey is perfect breakfast drink.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Way to justify that, right? But that's totally different drink than bourbon.
Absolutely, and we don't have, like I said before, we don't have the the sugar in the corn to kind of mellow it out there.
Scotch that?
No, that's specific to the Islay Scotch, where you get that really, really heavy peated and that really salty taste. I mean, if you have, the Highlands is a very varied region, but it's a lot.
Do we make an American Scotch?
No.
Really?
No. Yeah. They,
we do.
We call it whiskey.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With an E.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I have a question about, because I'm seeing more and more restaurants serving moonshine these days. And so what's the big draw to moonshine, and what sets that apart from the stuff that we're drinking now?
I mean, in my opinion, the big draw is it was something new.
Yeah.
And something neat and something to explore. I think it's kind of tailed off a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about moonshine, you're essentially talking about a neutral grain spirit that's just been unaged.
It's whiskey without character.
Exactly. So all these things are at some point, what they're selling is moonshine, but then they go into a barrel and they absorb that character and the color at that point.
Isn't moonshine just home brew? No.
What they're selling is white whiskey essentially, which is unaged whiskey, and they're marketing it as moonshine. When you're more correct in saying that it's anything that's homemade and unregulated is going to be moonshine, and usually sold at a much higher proof, not allowed to age. Therefore, when these age in the barrel, they lose the angel share, which kind of evaporates in the air, and that causes the proof to go down.
When you serve, I want to try. Pardon me if I can. Another.
Whoa, easy there.
Well, there's a lot of bottles here.
Any favorites here so far?
I think my favorite so far has been the bourbon.
Me too.
That's the most expensive one.
Oh.
Damn it!
And you can get that at Beuchert Saloon.
Right, Beuchert Saloon. I was wondering about the American whiskey. There is that.
Yeah. So
or what? This is the.
That's the straight rye.
Oh, the straight rye. We had the rye. Yeah.
This is the American whiskey. This is the one I was saying that goes into the used bourbon barrels after the new bourbon barrels.
Yeah.
And so if you taste that right after the bourbon, you'll notice a lot more character and flavor and sweetness there. It's not overwhelming sweetness, but it's underlying, and you can really get a lot of nice flavor off that. I like to make old fashions with that and not add any sugar to it.
Why don't you serve that one up there, Peter? So I'm curious, at Beuchert's now, when people are at the bar, do you serve, I'd like to have a snack. I'd like to have something to eat when I'm drinking,
Well, in my opinion, we have a phenomenal chef, Andrew Markert. It's the food's the best part of the restaurant. There's a lot of great things, but the food he's putting out is.
But what would you serve with people are having whiskey at the bar? Would you just serve snacks with that?
Absolutely. Some of my favorite things we have. Everything is made in house. Right now we don't have the room to bake, so just our bread and our cheeses we purchase, but everything else is made in house from scratch. For snacks, we have a really nice country pate that does a chicken liver and pork, ground up, and that's wrapped in Benton's bacon. We serve that over a homemade tomato jam. Which is absolutely excellent. Then we have a homemade charcuterie, that does really well with these things. And then, all of our vegetables from the farm.
Yeah. This is very good, too. Yeah, I like that a lot. Well, Brendan, this has been great. I've learned a lot, and I've had a lot to drink. And you ready for a nap? No. Ready for the gym.
Yeah.
So what do you think now that ready for the gym? You going to go to the gym like this?
Damn right.
Would you order this
Watch
now
out.
when you go out?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking. I think next time I'm out, I'm going to have a bourbon on the rocks.
Whoa.
Right?
Well, you should let me make an old fashioned sometime, Bill.
I would say old fashioned. I'd say go old fashioned.
Or even a Sazerac. We make a Sazerac.
That's a good gateway cocktail.
All right, this weekend we'll see you at Beuchert's.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks so much for coming in.
Appreciate
I'll be
it.
back with a quick. What do we call that again? Parting shot, maybe.
Good luck.
A shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek, Newtown,
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more? How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough. 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 Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook. Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, you know, sometimes there's just not enough time for a parting shot, and I think this is one of them. But it's been a great week and a great show today, ending up with with a bang of a climax into the Easter weekend. And we hope you make the best of the Easter weekend with your family, and kick back and have a good time. Relax. Don't forget to read one of those Gabriel Garcia Marquez novels. And then come back all refreshed and ready to go on Monday morning. We'll be here waiting for you on the Bill Press Show. Have a great one. Happy Easter, everybody.
Bill Press Show.